let's go to Tom Holland, okay? Because Tom Holland finally spoke up about Spider-Man 4. There's been a lot of rumors that it was in development, so we finally know that like those things were true. So let's talk about what Tom Holland said. I'm gonna pull this up for you guys. All right, he said this. I will always want to do Spider-Man films. I owe my life and career to Spider-Man. We have the best in the business working toward whatever the story might be, but until we've cracked it, we have a legacy to protect. This is the first time in this process that I've been a part of the creative so early. I'm watching and learning. It's it's just a really fun stage for me. Everyone wants it to happen, but we want to make sure we're not overdoing the same things. How do you feel about Tom Holland saying that about being Spider-Man?
I love it because first of all, like there's been so much back and forth from him on whether he's going to do it or he's going to come back. I think it was all blowing smoke to get a bigger bag, and he's obviously signed that. It made news when he signed that contract. But I think that he is. I think he cares more about the writing and direction in these movies, and I think that they need to. My big concern with Spider-Man, the more I think about Spider-Man in the MCU, and listen, we all love the MCU, but the harsh pill to swallow when it comes to the MCU and Spider-Man is that the way the MCU has become so successful and what it's become so successful making has created limitations on what they can do with Spider-Man, because the MCU is very spectacle, larger than life, type of story. It's driven by those stories, and Spider-Man is a very, it works. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of fans, myself included, we want that classic New York street level comic in a movie, and that's just not what the MCU does. And the other thing is they need characters like Spider-Man to be a big driver of the main MCU story, and they can't really do that if they have Spider-Man fighting someone like Scorpion, Matt Gargan, as the villain. And not that that's who I'd want the street level villain to be anyway, but you get what I'm saying here.
I disagree. I will say this though. I would have said that about Tom Holland back in the day, like before we got No Way Home.
No Way Home.
But with No Way Home, with this mini reset that we got with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he is in this place to where he's tech down. He has no more tech. The Tony Stark tech is going. Happy Hogan doesn't even know who he is, and he can kind of come back to that semi-grounded story where we can see him dealing with people like Kingpin and stuff like that. And I think that Daredevil is going to be the introduction into this grounded scenario. And I still think that you can do a grounded Spider-Man with maybe having end credits hinting to the greater MCU. And just because a story is grounded, I still think you can have superpowered beings and stuff like that without making it so alien-y. You know what I mean? And like you're good. And like, because to me, I think that Ant-Man was a very grounded story. Like Ant-Man 2. And there was a character like Ghost who had superpowers, but it didn't come off as like it was so out of this world, And even with Captain America: Brave New World, I think that's Spider-Man 4 is going to be coming from that same tone of where it's a grounded story, but we're also going to get characters like the Hulk, and we're also going to get a bunch of other like superpowered beings. So I think that the key is not making it alien-y, because making it alien-y can be very weird. And that's why for me, bro, like No Way Home for me even felt grounded because the villains, I mean, like it's just Green Goblin, and the Lizard Man and all of those other people. Obviously, you have Doctor Strange and all of that. But I think that Spider-Man 4, you got to stay away from space. Like leave space alone and leave the multiverse. I mean, and you can have multiversal like elements, but you really want to leave those two alone and focus on just super powered beings. and I think that can make it pretty like grounded.
This is one of the other reasons I think that they really need to have other stories taking place in the MCU that aren't necessarily driving the main story forward. You know, kind of like the comics. They have some stories that cross over into the larger crossover event, and then they have some that don't. I think we all want to see Spider-Man team up with Daredevil and Punisher, and obviously we know Daredevil and Punisher are coming back to the MCU, coming back, and this time to the MCU in a pretty big way, you know. But another character I think that would really work for, having a Spider-Man movie kind of with spectacle that might have some, godlike elements is Moon Knight. You know, Moon Knight is such a unique character in this sense because, in the comics, he fights a lot of street level crime, but his powers are larger than life, quite literally higher power. And I think that, you could add that element to a Spider-Man movie and get that spectacle while being street level at the same time. And this is another reason I think they really need to make Moon Knight a much bigger player in the MCU because, in the comics, I mean, he's taken on the Avengers. He is super powerful, and they don't have to make it dark and gritty like how he is in the comics, and they could do that quite successfully, like they did on Disney Plus. But I do think that we need a Spider-Man 4, and I think we need it soon because I think fans, myself included, are getting tired of seeing movies like the Marvels and Thor 4, and when we finally, or the one time we get a movie that's based on, one of the top tier characters, it gets that top tier character, Doctor Strange, gets sidelined by America Chavez. So, we need Spider-Man 4 and we need it sooner than later. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And, you were against it, but now you're starting to come around where, it was good that John Watts like stepped off because as much as Big Spider-Man was, he really coasted on those. Like he didn't go as hard as he could have. Because when I think of the old Spider-Man and the fact that I can't recall except the end of Spider-Man when we got a really long web sling, that's when I have an issue. Like there's no notable web sling that Spider-Man had except the end of No Way Home. And there are just certain things about Spider-Man that John Watts just didn't touch on, which is kind of weird.
We never ever saw MCU Spider-Man fighting while web slinging in with the NYC skyscrapers.
Yeah, only one scene.
And it's not even a fighting scene. It's It's the end of No Way Home, which is what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's that major problem. And when you think about something like that, I'm sorry, but John Watts, you just don't deserve to touch Spider-Man again.
Exactly.
And also, like, this is gonna sound crazy, but when you think of the Sam Raimi trilogy, like all three of those movies were good. Two of them were bangers. And, when you think about the MCU trilogy, you could say the same technically, but Far From Home sticks out like a sore thumb. Spider-Man 3 doesn't stick out in the way Far From Home does. Like the Spider-Man 3 trilogy, I feel like stands much better than the MCU one. And if you were to compare Spider-Man 3 from Far From Home, you would call Spider-Man 3 a banger.
I have to sit on that for a couple of days, but I understand what you're saying. I have to rewatch both. It's really been a while since I watched Far From Home and Spider-Man 3, but I hear you. I hear you there. Yeah, bro. I think that like yeah, bro. And let Sam Raimi do it. That's how I don't care. Like let Sam Raimi do it, bro. I don't
Yeah,
care.
they really should. They really
Yeah.
should.
Because Sam Raimi's gonna land those beats of Peter Parker that we need, and like get the MCU writers in there, get the guys that wrote. Because I think Spider-Man's writing was good, and you know the only people that like the best fight choreography I saw from Spider-Man was with the freaking Russos. I think that the Russos landed his fight choreography. Like when I go to Infinity War and Tony Stark is fighting one of Thanos' kids, and Spider like, do you remember that scene when the dude throws the car in air and the Spider-Man grabs it with the web and does a backflip at the same time and the car hits him? Like the fight choreography was amazing. Like give us like we need more fight choreography. I need less script, less descriptive talking. I need more action. Like give us the Batman, but with more action Spider-Man, where like just how the Batman, we saw Batman in the suit the whole time, which was freaking awesome. We barely got
Yeah.
any Bruce Wayne. The same thing they're doing with Blade now. Let's just see Spider-Man solving crime. Let him get so obsessed with crime and solving it, and then bring in someone that just rocks his world. Like that's what we want to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.